Hey guys, Dolphin15 here, and today we have a One Piece commentary video of a match I had against someone at Kingslayer Cards. I usually play there on Wednesdays because that is their One Piece Locals Day, and today at this event it was a box tourney. This is my second match. Round one we got the bye, so free dubs there and we ended up running into a red Luffy. Now, this red Luffy deck, opposed to a lot of the red Zoros you're seeing around, honestly plays more mid-ranges compared to the aggression that the Zoro list does. So my opponent tries to flood the board not as fast as Zoro, but with more meaningful bodies that are harder to get rid of, and as well as applying pressure throughout the match. My opponent won the die roll and has decided to go first and decided to play, I believe, Meeting at Sabodi, which allows them to add a Straw Hat to hand. And now I go and I drop the Law. The reason I've dropped the Law here is because I'm trying to prevent early aggression, as well as just getting a blocker being mana efficient. I play Desert Spada here to look at the top three cards in my deck and rearrange them in any order, place them on top, and add the 2K counter to make sure I don't get attacked. However, now here is an issue. I didn't block with the Law because I wanted to make sure that I could keep him up. However, my opponent drops a Robin here, which is very tough now early on since I'm going to lose this Law. I don't have the option in hand to make sure to get this Robin off the board. So I'm just accepting the fact that I'm going to lose this Law and decide to drop a Jack here. Maybe allowing it so the Robin can kill the Jack, because I believe Robin is 4K or less, but she might be 3K or less, and I'm misremembering. But I decide now just to play Baroque Works, get a Mr. 2 in hand, which is a 2K counter, and pass turn. Now, my opponent here untaps and goes. I've honestly am enjoying myself on Blue Purple Croc. I think it is a very solid deck. It is very fun to play too if you enjoy control. It is pretty much currently in the game the only control list around keeping hand size slash counter spell situations going on there. So if you are enjoy instant speed and all that stuff, I think this would be the perfect one for you because Kaido is a control list, but he's more blowing up the board and stuff like that. And I know that certain players prefer like control not through those means, like control as in just having a nice hand size and continually drawing. And Croc fills that need for all those people that enjoy that archetype. The only issue I currently see with Croc right now is just a green matchup. I have not figured out that matchup, and it is very difficult. I'm going to have to grind more games on that to figure out what this deck can do and add to have an advantage or to at least make the matchup more even. Now back to the current game that's on the screen. I decide to swing into the Robin to try and get rid of it. My opponent keeps it alive and proceeds to pass turn. So now my opponent's low on hand size because of the Jack, and currently still does have a board, but I'm in a nice situation here with the Queen, nice hand size, and just knowing that I have another Queen, I believe, at this point in hand to drop next turn to just really start allowing myself to have the board presence with these big bodies, and knowing that my opponent really can't get too much damage in, and the Robin is kind of just a 5k swing at this point. My opponent decides to kill the Jack, which was eliminating their hand size, which was a nice choice there. Always getting rid of board, in my opinion, in this matchup is solid. Getting rid of my ability to mitigate their hand size is always nice. So it was very smart play there. My opponent then swings at face. I pitch miss double finger block with queen to make sure my queen lives. And here I just take the hit from Nico Robin to get my hand size back up to make sure that I have cards in hand to protect double queen coming up next turn. So now my opponent's thinking whether to attach all their Dawn to Nami or just play another card. And I believe they're just going to drop down Nico Robin, which is exactly what my opponent does, and then they proceed to pass the turn. So now I'm in a situation where I'm going to drop my double queen. And from here on out, I just need to protect my face and drain my opponent of all their resources. So I'm going to drop the queen here, pitch the Don, and draw 2 to discard 1. And now I'm going to believe just swing into the Zoro. I thought about Robin at first, but I went Zoro's more important. It would make him get rid of the card in hand, which my opponent does, I believe, in this situation, because they need the pressure now and cannot afford to lose this Zoro. And I knew the situation I was in, and with this other queen, I was like, I need to get rid of the Zoro. I cannot afford to take another big swing from that card. So now my opponent is down to 1 card in hand, and I believe they are now at 9 Dawn, with the not the greatest of boards. 2 Robins and staring at 2 Queens is not a great thing here. They're going to swing 6 at my face, and in this situation, I believe I have my 2K counter in Mr. 2, but I just take it to add hand size because I was digging for Desert Spada, which I happen to hit, which is nice. So I do Desert Spada effect off the trigger to draw 2, pitch 1 to add more cards into my hand. My opponent then goes at a 6K swing at face with Robin. And in this situation, I have my queen up, but my opponent has a bunch of Dons, so I'm just going to pitch both my Miss All Sundays in this situation. And she is kind of not the greatest in this situation with 2 Robins on board. I would just be paying 3 mana to get a event back, which in my honest situation wouldn't be the greatest. And my opponent drops a Luffy and swings with Robin first. So now I'm in a situation where I'm staring at the big body. I give him the queen, and now it is my go. My opponent chooses not to swing to not allow me to crack back into the Luffy, and is trying to have a situation where they can win the game in the next 2, in a situation where they just have the Luffy swing for game or just flood me with these attacks. So now I'm in a rough spot here. I only have 1 blocker, so I need to start trying to kill the board. Need to get rid of these Robins. I can't afford to be taking too many swings. So I trying to see my hand here. I have Blast Breath. I have King. So I definitely have situations where I can live this. I'm going to attempt to destroy the 2 Robins, which I do get through. And now I believe I think I have another queen in hand in this situation, and I believe I'm just gonna. Oh no, I do not. I just passed her, and I keep up all my mana. Oh, I remember now what happened in this situation and why I did that. I have currently Crescent Cutlass in hand, which is an event that you tap 3 Dawn, and it bounces back a 5K forward to or less to your opponent's hand. So in this situation, I was thinking my opponent wants to dedicate all their resources to the Luffy to try and edge out the win through that. I had the ability to just bounce it back to my opponent's hand. So we'll see what my opponent does in this situation. And they proceed to attach 1 Dawn and are counting out their Dawn now. And my opponent proceeds to attach a multitude of Dawn on their Luffy. Oh, actually, they just attached it all on swung face, which is exactly what I was hoping for. I tap 3 here, play Crescent Cutlass, and bounce Luffy back to hand. So perfect situation that could have occurred for me there. I was able to get out of that situation, as well as putting the Luffy back into their hand and not taking any damage. So now we go back into it. Now we're in a situation where we have an advantage going for us, and we now that I was a turn later where I drew the next queen. So we're definitely going to play the queen here, draw 2 cards, and get a massive blocker on the board. So always solid, gets rid of the aggression with that. And knowing what my opponent now has in hand, which is just a Luffy and an unknown, I'm not that scared anymore because the Luffy, even though it can be massive, doesn't do much to me in this situation now. Like, it gets a swing, but they'd have to dedicate a bunch of Dawn in, and then I have blocks for the smaller guys and Luffy and events in hand. So I'm in a very good spot here. I have no fear, and we can see from my opponent's hand they have a Robin and a Luffy and an event. So we're in a very good spot. My opponent proceeds to drop down the Luffy again, pay 5, attach 2 Dawn, and swing at my lead. So that is a 7K swing coming at lead, or 8K, my apologies. I proceed to Blast Breath, lose the Dawn, draw a card off Croc. And now my opponent's thinking whether to attach the Dawn to Nami. I believe they're going to swing 7 at face. I have some interesting cards in hand. I have Overheat, but Overheat in this situation isn't the greatest because I do not really want to bounce the Namis back to the hand. So I'll pitch the 2k counter and block with Queen. Because Overheat is a very good card, but in situations like this where the opponent has only 2 Namis on board, it's not the greatest counter to play in this situation, only because you would be funneling their hand again. And at this point, it is a war of attrition to make sure my opponent is constantly on only 2 to 3 cards in hand, while I am mostly sitting at 4 to 5. So always having hand size in this matchup is very important, as stated earlier. And we'll see what my opponent does here. They play a Robin again, and they play a Bartholomew, and pass. So now we do not know what the last card in hand. They have Luffy, and they have a full board on here. So now we're in a situation where we can push, kind of. We're going to attach, and we're going to swing at the Luffy to try and make them lose their last card. Or, best case scenario, which just happened, where they lose the Luffy without pitching. We now play another Queen to just have the board state now fully in our favor. We have 3 massive blockers, massive hand size. No need to push here. We have all the events we need in hand. If they swing with whatever they swing with first, we now have Overheat to just bounce one of them back to hand so they don't even have another attack. Force them to play, draw off Overheat. We're in a super winning position here. Unfortunately, the only downside to the position we're at right now is the fact that my opponent has currently, I believe, 4 life left at this stage of the game, which will add a lot of cards to their hand. But with the way we have the board state now, the only things that could really stop us is a Shanks. A Shanks would be very good here, or another Luffy, because the unblockable would be very dangerous for us at this point without Crescent Cutlass in hand. But I'm just, at this point, I'm thinking that I can't really lose this game. So our opponent's now trying to find a way out. It's a very impressive board state. They drop the Luffy again, attach all their leftover Dawn, I believe they're going to, on Luffy, and they're going to swing at my face for 11k. So I'm going to tap 4, and I believe I loved, and I overheated. So I bounced the Robin back to hand, and then I get a double draw of Love Beam thanks to Croc, and thanks to the event. And now my opponent swung. They're once again at 1 card in hand, Luffy down, and we're in a, as stated earlier, in a very good position here. We can just tap 5 here, and we'll tap 6. My apologies. Play King, blow up the Bartholomew, so no blocker. We get a free swing onto Rush Luffy to definitely get rid of that. We're gonna swing 7 just in case my opponent had a 2k counter in hand, which they do not. They lose the Luffy, and now all they have on board is Nami, and I'm going to, I believe I just passed here. I did not want to swing face, and just let my opponent play out here. I'm fancy just now going swing with king, swing with lead. I don't need to swing anything else at this point. And now my opponent plays another Rush Luffy. His card just keeps coming at me and trying to swing for game. Well, not game, but swing me down to last life. They attach all their Dawn on it. I just take it there. I did not have the resources to survive that hit. So now I draw for this turn, and I look at my hand size, and I realize how much I have, and I'm counting my opponent's life here. And honestly, I was thinking at this point maybe I could push for game, but I thought it was safer to just attack the Luffy and get rid of it, because that would be 3 Luffys down now at this point. So we're now seeing we get the Luffy. So now there's literally only 1 Luffy left in my opponent's deck. Odds of them getting it are very low. And we're just going to play 7-drop Croc, make my events cost 1 less by attaching a Dawn to it. And I believe we... the optimal play here would have been just attach the Dawn and don't swing. But I believe I Oh no, I actually did do it. I thought I swung here, and it was a little aggressive, but I was not. I chose to just pass, not allow my opponent to get more cards in hand to try and look for the out. My opponent swings with Luffy, 6k, I block with Queen, and I just pitch a Jack. Not going to need him in this situation, I believe, with my board filled with all of these massive bodies. So, my opponent's now thinking, 3 cards in hand. I don't really know what they could have in this situation. I haven't really gotten a glimpse at their hand. But the only out, in my honest opinion, I think to this situation would have been Shanks to drop a massive body, but my opponent just had Nico. They use effective Luffy to attach a Rested Dawn onto Nami, and they tried to get a 5k swing into 6k, my apologies, and I just pitched the card from my hand. No need. I thought a Rush Zoro may be coming. So it goes to my turn. And now here in this situation, I'm staring at the board, and I have 3 blockers. I'm going to attach the 1 Dawn to Croc to make my events cost 1 less, for sure. Have an 8k swing, and I'll swing 8 at face. And now I've come to a situation where my opponent has very little resources here to defend, and I have a lot of big swings here. I have 4 big swings. And so I was thinking this at this point at time, do I go for game or do I swing at the Nami? And that was my situation I was thinking there. I asked my opponent here for a life, and I believe they told me 3. So now I'm thinking, do I go for game? And I I was like, I have the bodies, I could do it. I swing 7, my opponent takes it, and I go perfect 2. And I'm like, I have another big swing with Queen here, making it 9k. And so I swung again to see if my opponent would take it, which they do. And in this situation, I edited out. But I had a whole minute of thinking here about my Dawn attachment and placements, understanding how much counters they had. And I decided that at this situation, rather than holding up and relying on what my opponent has in a top deck to maybe have the win, I went, let me push for game. Let me lose on my own terms. So I decided to go for an 8k swing at lead with Queen. And in this situation, I realized my opponent was thinking, which means that they have the counters and the ability to prevent this swing most likely. They could be bluffing, but I did not believe they were. I've played against this person multiple times, and I know they're a good player. So that was in the back of my mind, but I believe they did have the opportunity to block this attack and chose not to. So now I was calculating whether I should put more on Croc or should I just go for another 8k with Queen, which I do. My opponent now is thinking whether to not thinking, they have to block this, so I want to understand how much resources they use too. I swing for game, got the game, and won. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe, and have a happy new year, and I will see you guys in the next video.